Hello, everybody. We're back. I'm back with the fabulous Rhoda, who happens to be my mother. Mid-80s and stories of war-torn England, Europe, Great Britain, and how it was for her growing up in London. In fact, she doesn't sound like it, but she is a Cockney. And why don't you tell everybody what being a Cockney actually means?
It means that you're born within the sound of Bow Bells.
What's Bow Bells?
It's a church,
right,
in the heart of London, and you drop your H's, and my mother couldn't bear that, so I was sent to elocution classes. That's why I'm not a true.
All right. So so a sentence that, and there's also Cockney slang, isn't there? Like apples and pears mean stairs.
Yes.
And what would dropping your H's sound like to somebody from America? Would it be like My Fair Lady when she says, hello, governor?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. You know, have a penny.
Have a penny. Yeah. Sit down. Sit down and have a glass of water.
That's right.
So as well as that, tell me what you did. Tell all of us, what was it like to grow up? What did you do? Like, we watch TV, we play with electronic games, we talk to each other on iPhones and iPads and Skype. What did you do?
We listened to the radio every weekend because my father shut the shop on Saturdays, and family would come round and we'd have games round the dining room table. We had a very big room above the shop that was the whole length and width of the shop, and massive table. Sat, I think, 14 people.
Wow.
And the family would come round. We'd have games like chase.
Which was a card game.
Oh, yes. It was always card games. It was all different games.
Did you gamble for money?
No, it was family.
Okay, well, some people might have gambled for money.
No, it was family. And also, when there was a birthday of my brother or I, there was only 2 years and 2 days difference, we would move the furniture against the wall and we'd dance to Victor Sylvester, who was a very big favourite in England. I don't know if you heard of America, but we used to teach each other to dance.
What kind of music? Was it swing band kind of music?
No, it was ballroom. Waltz, foxtrot, quick step.
Okay.
There was no salsa then or anything like, or samba.
Right.
It wasn't anything like that.
So nice, simple times. And
yes.
Family meals, do people, like nowadays, people bring potluck, which means everybody brings a dish. Was it like that then?
No.
So who did all the food?
My mother and my grandmother cooked the food. And when we went to my aunt, she also had a big old-fashioned house. And my uncle had a fish shop where he made fish and chips. And he would bring home on a Saturday fish. And my aunt, who'd made a little kitchen in the main room, would be frying the fish, and we'd all sit round and have fish and chips. And downstairs in the basement was a table tennis table. And the men would go downstairs and have a game of table tennis while the women sat upstairs chatting. As women do.
How fun.
It was. And no. My mother loved the theatre. And on a Wednesday afternoon, she would go to a matinee and come back to cook us all a meal while I was at school. And on a Saturday, my father would go to a Turkish bath and my mother would go to a cinema in the afternoon and a theatre in the evening, and they'd meet up and come home.
Tell everybody what a Turkish bath was.
Well, it's a steam room. It's like a sauna.
Like a wet sauna or a dry sauna?
A dry sauna. And he had a loofah. They would put soap on it and swish it over his body while he lay on the table to clean him, and he would sweat like hell.
Yuck, that sounds attractive, doesn't it?
He loved it. He loved it.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't his person washing him with a bloody... That doesn't sound attractive at all. Okay. So this sweaty guy is being swished?
Yes.
Sweaty guys?
No, by attendants, not from...
But male attendants?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, that feels a bit better than having to do it, from a woman's point of view. But and then the theatres were mostly musicals and light-hearted and...
He went to anything.
What about your theatre experiences? Tell people some of the interesting people that you saw before they became famous that we've all heard of.
Oh, right. Let me think. It was...
Streisand. Danny Kaye.
Oh, yes. Now, Danny Kaye was my favourite. Well, he was at the London Palladium on a Sunday night, and I couldn't get tickets. So what I did was I went in with a crowd of people, went to the ladies, and stayed there till the show started.
Oh, you sneaky one. You snuck in.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
And he was so popular, there were people standing against the wall, and I stood with them. And he went on, and he didn't finish till 12 o'clock at night, when all the trains had finished and all the buses had finished, and I had to walk from the west end of London to the east end of London, which was about 10 miles. And because I was a bit scared, I walked in the middle of the road all the way home.
Wow.
And
what about Barbara Streisand? You got to see her before she was famous, didn't you?
Yes, I saw her in Funny Girl, Barbara Streisand. Yes, she came to London and she wasn't famous yet. And my mother had 2 tickets and she was going to see it. And my grandmother died and she couldn't go. So she gave me the tickets. And I went, yes. And I walked, I'm trying to think of his name. Howard Keel. I walked him from the theatre to his hotel. Because I was a stage door Johnny. I had an autograph book full of famous people. Yes. He was lovely. Oh, really? I know I've seen nearly all Danny Kaye's films. I loved him.
Yeah, but how lovely to see Barbara Streisand at her beginning of her career too.
Yes. Oh,
yeah. So, and you actually got to see Frank Sinatra as well, didn't you, before he became an older man?
Yes. My daughter got my husband and I tickets for the Royal Albert Hall. He was there, and we were sitting on the stage. They'd put seats at the side of the stage because it sold out, and there were so many people wanting to see him. And he was singing, and he came over and gave us a big wink. It was lovely. It was lovely. Yes.
So nice memories. And London in those days, the theatres were beautiful, weren't they? Plush seats and
yes.
Gorgeous decorations. Was it affordable? Because now it's terribly expensive.
It was affordable. When you was on your 7th birthday, we got a box. My mother,
Yep, I know. I remember it.
you, and your sister.
We went to see Anne of Green Gables.
That's right.
Yep.
And we sat in the royal box. That was the first fiesta Ruth went to.
And I still remember it because it was clear. It was Anne of Green Gables and she had a dog in the show, in the story, and she walked this beautiful golden retriever onto the stage. And I still remember the show and the dog and the whole thing because it was just this magical evening. You know, the lights all get turned down and you're sitting there in a fancy box. You feel like the queen. You're wearing your best dress. And I think I wore a velvet dress. He was there and it was magical. So yes, London's still like that for me, but of course theatre prices are now horribly expensive, but the shows are still just as magical as they always were. It still is a magic place to go. So anything else you want to...
Oh, I saw Nureyev, the ballet dancer.
Oh, you saw Rudolf Nureyev?
Yes.
Wow.
With Margot Fontaine. Dancing...
The Nutcracker?
No, the Swan Lake.
Swan Lake. And did he really leap that high?
Amazing. He was amazing, and she was so slight and small, and it was lovely.
It's funny because one of my clients was a ballet dancer for the New York Ballet, and I was her massage therapist and healer, and she used to come in walking like a blinking duck with her feet out.
That's nice.
And my job was to get her feet straight so she could walk like a normal person, and it was quite a challenge. So although it was beautiful that she did this incredible ballet, we had to try and get like a duck.
Yes, splayed feet.
So for me it was like, oh God, here we go. I've got the ballet dancer, and other people would think it was marvelous. And I think, oh my God, my work is cut out for me. But it was sweet. Anything else I know we're coming closer to our time. Is there anything else you'd like to? Yeah, well, I'd love to just end this time talking about the foods. So nowadays, when you say to a kid, here's a chicken McNugget, they don't necessarily know where that it actually belonged to a blinking chicken. And at your time, you really knew where your food came from, didn't you? Do you want to explain how you ate and how you prepared food then?
Well, we very rarely went out to eat because my grandmother, who lived with us, did most of the cooking. And being Jewish, we were very kosher. So we used to go to the shops that sold the Jewish food. I remember one shop which was very famous for smoked salmon. And my mother used to go around behind the counters because she knew the people that owned it. He would give me all the bits with bones that you threw away for me to salmon off of, and I used to love that. I used to love it when she went there.
It sounds horrible to because I don't like smoked salmon, but probably lovely for you.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was the best smoked salmon in the whole of London, I think. He was very famous.
What about the fact that your mum kept a chicken in the garden?
Oh, well, because we only had of meat per person a week, Mother decided, in her wisdom, to get some chickens and have them in the garden so that when we had company, we could kill one and make a nice chicken dinner. And one day we chased this blooming chicken round and round the yard till my grandmother decided to throw a sack at it. We took it to the slaughterhouse and I watched it, and I any chicken that weekend.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm a vegetarian from that story. Wow, that didn't make you into a vegetarian. I know, that would make me into a vegetarian. Do that for you, though. You still eat chicken.
Yeah.
But, yes, a really different world, huh? Yeah, was the salmon your favourite? Smoked salmon?
Yes, still is.
It still is. She still likes her smoked salmon sandwich. My mum likes to eat something that really disgusts me. Actually, it's called tongue. She eats something, and it's like, oh my God, I just can't even imagine. But she loves it. Yeah, I get a little bit tongue-tied. Like, ooh, gross. It makes me even more of a vegetarian than ever. But each to his own.
Liver.
Yeah, she used to make the most disgusting liver, bless her, that was so rubbery that you'd got more luck chewing the bottom of your shoe. Yep, it was definitely her thing. But it was overcooked and absolutely dreadful. I couldn't do it. Didn't like the consistent flavour of it, and I'm so happy that I do not touch that stuff. Haven't touched it since I was a kid. But it's funny the things you grow up with. So I really appreciate all these stories. It's so lovely to talk to somebody who's lived a few years. And I think if I had a message to all our listeners, Sprinkles, I would suggest to everybody to go to the elders in your life and ask them questions so that you can learn about their lives, because one day they won't be walking with us here physically, and then we'll miss all those lovely stories that we've gotten to hear tonight, that we've gotten to share. And precious. Yes, that's a really good way. But the trouble is that tells you the history, but it doesn't tell you the stories that go in with that history too much. It gives you an outline, but it won't tell you about how somebody chased a chicken around the yard or sat down to dinner with 14 people at a table, you know.
And also with my family, they'd have a job. My father came from Poland and my mother came from Russia when the pogroms were on. So I could never find any of my ancestors.
Because their names were on.
They changed my father's birthday because they couldn't understand what month it was.
Oh.
So we don't know how he died.
Wow, really? So they changed the actual year of his birth and everything?
Everything. They couldn't read his birth certificate.
Did he know when he was born?
No.
Oh, wow. I'm sure that was really common in America as well. Well, my family, when they landed in England, they were hoping to get to America and the ship stopped in the UK. I think they were a bit disappointed that they didn't get to the States, right? So it was like, oh crap, we've stopped in the wrong country. So I was the first to migrate to America and become an American. And so, of course, now I hold dual nationality. And, of course, I'm in one of the countries that's allowed to go backwards. We've got some strange rules these days. And so I carry the British and the American passport. So it's really good. But yes, my ancestors thought they were landing in America and the boat stopped a little short. England. Yeah. I know. I was like, oops, wrong country. Oh, well, getting off here anyway. Fantastic. Okay. So, Mum, if you had last words of wisdom to share with all our listeners, what would you tell them?
Enjoy every day as if it's your last and see only the best in other people.
Yeah, good words of wisdom. You know, there's a movie that I recently watched. It's called About Time. It talks about this very thing. It's really lovely because it talks about and proposes that we make the most of every day and make every day really special. And half of that is our attitude in which we stand in the day that we're in, much more than whatever the day holds. It's about how we're standing in it, regardless of what it holds. So I agree with that. So lovely. Okay, well, so you can find me on Healer Ruth. You can find me on Ruth, the holisticsoulhealer.com. Ruth at the holisticsoulhealer.com if you want to email me any questions or suggestions. Next week's show, same time, same channel, next Thursday, I'm going to tell you some stories of my days of healing. I'm going to talk about the places I've been, the people I've met. I've got so many stories to share. So next week is going to be me and you. Put your feet up, sit by a fire if you're in somewhere cold, and sit by an open window if you're fantastic stories that will knock your socks off. So that's going to be our week next week. Is on Off the Cuff Live, and we're also on eZine magazine, and you can see my articles every month with the fabulous Sprinkles Nixon on Spreaker. I've got Rhoda Waterman with me. This is my mother, and she's in her mid-80s, and she lived through the traumatic and troubling and also community building World War II years. And we're talking to her about, we're moving forward at this point in our conversation, where we're going to talk about what she sees as the biggest gains and also the biggest losses in what did we gain from moving forward in the times that we're in, advancements that she feels are helping us as people and communities and society, and what have we lost along the way in the way of community and personal connection and so on. So what do you see when you were growing up? Your entertainment had nothing to do with computers and televisions and electronic devices, did it?
No,
So,
none at all.
okay,
We had radio, family,
right,
and family always came first. We would be round our mothers when we were early married, or our aunts or our uncles. We always went visiting. We always had games we played together, and that was our real commitment.
yes. So community wasn't so much a big circle of friends as it was a big circle or even a small circle of very close-knit family.
Yes.
Okay, because I remember I grew up in the East End of London at my grandmother's, your mother's and father's chemist or pharmacy shop. And across the street, just about across the street, in the tiny little street, was my Uncle Alf and my Uncle Kitty. They had a fish and chip shop. And then down the road was friends that were like family, David and his wife. And they had a candy store. So
Yes.
for a kid, it was brilliant. We had fish and chips across the street and candy down the road. But your memories.
Sick, my dad would look after you.
And then, of course, there was chocolate pudding at the pharmacy, which was delicious. So we had dessert.
Yeah,
But yeah. But for you, it was a bit more organic, wasn't it, to grow up in that kind of time? Because everything was right around you. You went to all these little shopkeepers to get all your stuff.
Oh, yes.
How is it so different now for you?
Well, the biggest fear I see is that we've lost a lot of close family. The children are so busy in their rooms on their computers when they come home from school that they only come out for a meal and then go back again.
Right.
And that's taken as granted. It's not put down the law that you all sit down together where we used to.
Right.
to eat. We wouldn't think of not eating with our mums and dads as we grew up.
Right. What was the advantage from a kid's standpoint, from your point of view, to sitting around a table with a bunch of adults? Did you feel like you learnt a lot? Was it a wisdom sharing? What was the conversation like? What did they talk about around that table?
It was great. We talked every subject. If the radio was on, we listened to the news, especially during the war.
Right.
And know where our soldiers were and the Americans, the French, then we discuss it. And we were more, more interested in the world at that time than the children are today.
Right.
The only time they're interested is when we're going on holiday, where are we going? We had respect for our adults, especially our elderly. They haven't got that nowadays.
Right. So now that you're in that senior, elder, wise, sage place in your life, how do you get treated by your fellow man, generally?
With the teenagers, without respect. They will. I go around on a buggy most of the time, and
scooter, motorised scooter, right?
And the kids, the teenagers, will ride on the pavement, and they don't care if they bump into people.
You mean on bicycles and things?
On bicycles, right. Yes, and scooters. Motorised scooters. They'll go on the pavement because it's quicker than going with the traffic on the road because of the traffic lights.
And they'll bang into the seniors and not care?
No, they've knocked baskets, they've knocked people over and just carry on driving.
Wow. Okay. So you notice a lack of care?
Very much
for one another?
Yes.
Right. So do you feel that when families sat around a table and talked about the world, there was also more care for the world at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, more caring. People were much more caring and more respectful.
Right.
If you were in a queue and there was an elderly lady behind you, she didn't have to carry a stick. They'd say, go in front of me. Go first.
Right.
When you were queuing up for a bus, they would help the person onto the bus if they were elderly. Nowadays, it's happened here. A woman with a pram, there was a man in a electrified buggy, wanted to get on the bus, and there's always a space on the buses here for a buggy or a pushchair. And she wouldn't use the pushchair for him to get on the bus. He had to wait for the next one, and it was pouring with rain.
Oh.
And she could have moved up and been in the gangway. The conductor, the driver, could have said to her, move up, and he didn't.
Right.
And the man on the buggy had to get off the bus, off the step of the bus, and stay back and get wet.
Because no one was considerate of him.
No.
Yeah, that's sad, isn't it?
And I've stood in a bus where it's been crowded when I used to walk, and
nobody got up.
Not one. Yes, a woman got up, but not a man.
Wow. Okay, so we could do a better job with our consideration. We've lost it.
Yes.
And is this like my generation or younger, or is this across the board? So from the from your own peer group, right the way down to children, you're saying that the lack of consideration has grown.
Yeah.
Well, that's sad to hear that.
Oh yes,
because that's where consideration and respect begin. Now, as well as we talked a little bit about letter writing. The art of letter writing has been lost. What do you, on a positive note, what do you think we've done better now than we were doing way back when?
Well, we found cures for lots of things.
Yeah.
Technology has got better. Even people my age can use a computer now.
Right.
And text and mobile telephone. That is fantastic. but it's taken away an awful lot.
Right, so it's mixed blessings.
Yes.
I mean, it's lovely to be able to Skype across the world like we're doing right now.
Fantastic. I used to love that when my daughter was in America, because I would see her nearly every day like I do now.
Right. Well, and I do Skype sessions with healing, and I can hold up an angel card or look at someone right in the face and tell them something, and it's like we're in the same room. So it's not, nothing's lost even when I'm doing a reading. So I love Skype. I don't think I could do my business without it, because a lot of my work is still around the world, to Hawaii and Japan and America and everywhere else, Canada. So we've gained a lot from communicating through things like Skype, but we've lost a lot because our communication prevented us from being as personal with one another.
Oh, yes, because we're talking to one another that's sitting here. A person can phone up on Skype from anywhere in the world and talk to you even now. I mean, even while you're on the air.
Yeah, exactly.
So technology is fantastic for that.
Yeah.
But it's taken away the personal touch to a lot of people that don't know how to use it.
Yes, right. Well, and the other thing that you see quite commonly, one of my gripes, is, so I'm standing in a supermarket in a line or in a queue, and I'm waiting to buy my groceries, and someone else is ahead of me. They're in the line or the queue, and they're on their cell phone and completely ignoring the person that's packing their groceries.
Oh, yeah.
And it's heartbreaking, because there's somebody there that's working on their behalf. Yes, it's their job, and yes, they're taking money, but it's not the point. There's a sitting in front of you that you're completely disregarding, ignoring, and you're busy on your cell phone, not caring one hoot about anybody else in the area. And I've seen it even at post offices where someone's talking loudly on their phone. We can all hear their conversation, and they're completely disregarding the fact that we're all forced to stand in their conversation in a public place. It's just downright annoying. So we never had that before, did we?
No, but there was somebody on the telephone, mobile telephone, the other night crossing the road in front of the car I was in. And if the driver hadn't been really observant, could have knocked him down.
Yeah.
He didn't look. He just got off the curb and walked as if the road belonged to him, talking on the phone.
Wow.
So it can be a dangerous thing as well.
Yeah, it's a bit nuts, isn't it? Okay, well, but medically,
fantastic.
There's been huge. I mean, do you think you would still be here today if we didn't have kind of some of the advances that we've had in medicine?
No, I've gone through cancer and been one of the very lucky ones to still be here. And if it wasn't for the doctors and the nurses' care and the hospitals' care in both countries.
Yes, America and England. Yep.
I'm so thankful for that. And I thank God for that every day when I wake up.
Right, because we definitely have had advancements in medicine
that
have helped us to, helped humanity to keep going.
Yes.
Where years ago, I mean, in World War times, a lot of people didn't survive some of the illnesses that they are surviving now.
No.
Right? So we do have some good aspects to our society right now. We're getting ready to take another break. When we come back, I'd just like to finish off our time with Rhoda and let her talk about some of the things that she would like us to do in our world to make it better. So we're going to want to finish this out on a positive note of encouragement, and how elders could be included in society instead of excluded in society to help society be a better place because of the wisdom of somebody who's been on the earth over 80 years. So when we come back, we're going to just check in and see what she has to share about that. It's always nice to have somebody who's in the elder, sage, wise, ancestral wisdom that we don't always get to hear in our society. And It's a great pity because there's an awful lot they have to share with us. So come right back and share with me, with Rhoda, the Truth with Ruth Thursdays, right here on Encore Radio. We'll catch up with you soon. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. Thank you. Hello, welcome back to the Truth with Ruth Thursdays here on Off the Cuff Radio. Welcome back. I'm here live with Rhoda, my mother, who lived through the traumatic, turbulent, and sometimes really sweet, bittersweet aspects of World War II. We're actually talking about the differences that she's witnessing as a sage, wise elder in our society. I've definitely seen more impatience in mankind of all ages, including the elderly, that I never saw before. I see a lot of road rage and parking issues and driving issues, especially here in England where the roads are smaller and the parking spaces are more limited. That people are horribly impatient and sometimes to the point of dreadful rudeness. But I saw it in America too. I saw it in California where people would whiz past you on the freeway and park right next to you and not care and bang into you and not repeat it. I definitely saw some challenging behaviours, shall we say, in the department of slight selfishness, and I've seen it everywhere I've gone that that's more apparent. How do you feel about that from your age standpoint, and what can we do to do better?
I think it's the age we live in, because at this moment people are always after the dollar or the pound, whichever country you live in, or the euro, and they're eager to get where they're going, to make their money, and about the people.
Right.
And I think that is a big problem, because it affects the youngsters as well. Because the mother goes to work, the father goes to work, because they want better lifestyle. And I don't blame them, but it has made the home deteriorate, because there's no togetherness anymore, even in families.
What would you do if you could suggest something to any listeners or anybody that's wanting to improve their family life? Would you make sure that there was at least one evening a week where everyone sat around the table? What would you suggest for people to do to make it better?
Yes. I mean, that's what it was like in our family. We were all busy. My father and mother lived over the shop, and they were in the shop all hours. If somebody knocked on the door, even when we were closed, my father would open it up and serve them. But we made it a rule that a Friday night, everybody, even the children, even as teenagers, even as married, we had to get together on a Friday night to have a meal together. And they could knock the door down, my father wouldn't answer it. Friday night was family night.
So there was a sacred time set aside to be together.
Yes.
And so do you feel that if that happened in our society more, that there would be more consideration would come back and less rudeness? And do you think it would have a knock-on effect on everybody if that happened at everybody's table?
It should do, because then the children that were locked up in their room on their computer and only came out for a meal and then went back again would stay out, because the rest of the family were there, and it would make it more communal, more friendly, more interesting.
Right. So it's definitely a solution to an issue, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it might be. Yeah. I mean, I'm not Einstein, I wouldn't. But yes, it might be a solution.
So if you had to, well, I have another question for you. So we hear a lot about our Earth and about ecology and about plastic being used and filling up our oceans and the fact that we've got less good air and pollution and the ozone layer, and the fact that animals are dying off and bees are disappearing. And I know that people will say, well, it was all of your generation and my generation that created the problem. Do you think that's true? Because you didn't hear too much about the environment in your generation. And
we used to have fogs. I mean, they were so thick,
right,
that I used to hang out the door when my father or when my husband was driving with a torch to see if we could find where the curb was, so that he would make sure he was driving on the road.
Wow.
So that's how thick the fog was. We once spotted a car, I'll tell you a little story, that had lovely headlights, really big headlights. And my husband says, well, follow this car. He's going straight down the road. And we followed him right up to his own driveway.
That's funny. And then what did you do?
Well, we had to reverse and find our way back again. We knew with the torch.
That's funny. That wasn't the only funny story you had in the road, was there? What about the story about you in a sidecar attached to a motorcycle?
We were living in Wales, and we were going down to a beautiful seaside resort. And my husband had a friend who was rather big, and a wife, and me, who was pregnant with my second son. and a daughter. So I sat on the pillion, and this big man got into the sidecar just about, and his wife and their daughter, who also wasn't very small. And we were going up to Sketty, and we went up this hill, and the bike was pushing it because it was really a steep hill. And suddenly I saw the sidecar going along beside us on a lower road. It had parted completely from the motorbike. And thank God there was a bush at the end of the path on the side where it managed to stop before it got into the water.
And then you had to go back and get it. And then?
Yeah.
Because the people were just sitting there.
We had to call the AA because they were stuck in this bush. And they couldn't open the door. They couldn't get out.
Well, sometimes don't change. Do you know what? I bought a Jeep. You remember my Jeep? It was a Jeep Wrangler, and I had it in New England. And I went to a girlfriend's house, and it didn't have the best braking system on it. You really had to pull the handbrake up really high. It was a really old Jeep Wrangler, and it was stick shift and everything, which I didn't like. But it was old and it was cheap, and I got it because it was convertible. It wasn't really convertible. It was a big pain in the butt to take the roof off. And I remember stopping at my girlfriend's house, putting the handbrake on, but it was a very, very steep hill. I didn't think anything of it. I went in to do a massage and to do readings, to do my whole healing afternoon, make a little money, so I was all very happy about that. Suddenly this policeman comes up to the window of the house that I was in when I was in the middle of a massage, and I just looked at him and I said, "Oh, you must have the wrong, they're around the other side." I was like pointing to him and gesturing to him because I was in the middle of my massage. I wasn't going to get interrupted. So he goes round to the front door, and the next thing I know is the people are knocking on the door where I am, and they said, "It's for you," and I said, "It can't be. It's not my house." And they said, "No, the policeman's here for you because there's a car that slid backwards down the hill and it's sitting in the bushes." and it was my car. It was my car that had braked on properly, and it was an old car. And it had slid down. It hadn't done any damage. It hadn't hit anything. It had found its way down the hill, and it had backed itself up into the green belt bit where there was bushes. But the car, there was no way to get it out. It was a stick shift, and I couldn't get it started. There was loads of mud. So I had to get 3 policemen to push the bum of my car out of the bushes and get me back on the road. And the police were all cracking up laughing. And this wasn't a jolly bunch of police in New England. They were tended to be very serious and all about writing tickets. So it was kind of cool. And the family laughed about it for years. For years, that my car was stuck. And all the neighbours had watched this all happen. And no one had done anything until finally someone said, "I don't think that was supposed to happen." And they're the ones that phoned the police and said, "I think a car wasn't supposed to have done this, but it slid into the bushes backwards." Anyway, so.
Oh, always car stories.
Yes.
My father had bought a Ford car. We were thrilled to bits because in 1939 there was hardly anybody with a car. And he used to take us all out in his car. And one day he took us to Southend. And we'd actually seen the seaside. I think I was 8. That was the first time.
Because Southend is the closest seaside to London, just to let our listeners know.
53 miles. On the way back, there's 7 bridges that you go over towards London. So we lived in London. So coming home, suddenly a plume of smoke came out the radiator lid. The lid fell off, and then there were flames. And he stopped the car and said, "Get out, everybody, the car's going to explode." So we stood at the side of the road. A bus came along, got out his extinguisher, took out the fire, then put the car, towed it all the way to London. So there we were, all sitting in the car, being towed by a bus, a big red bus.
A bus with passengers?
Yes.
Oh, so the passengers must have thought this was fabulous.
Well, what happened was we had to stop at every bus stop.
Oh my God, of course you did.
to pick up the passengers. So where an hour's journey it should have taken us, we didn't get home till 3 hours, and he had to go to the bus depot where we ended up waiting for the AA.
Oh, wow. Was that fun?
It was great fun. I had that story at school. I was telling everybody for weeks.
Oh, my God. That's great. I've never heard that story. That's exciting. Car stories. There's always, every family has got at least one car story.
You locked the car.
Yes. Okay, so there is a story that I am guilty of. My mum had a little white Nissan, and we were in north of Santa Barbara in California. I went about once a month to this little salon, and she rented it to me for the day. So she'd leave the keys under the mat. I would go in, pick up the keys, rent it for the day, leave her some rent, leave the keys back under the mat, and off we'd go. And I went in and I did a load of work up there for the day, and then I went back to Los Angeles. And my mum used to be the receptionist for me at that time because she was living in America with me for a few years. So we drove up. We had loads to think about. We always had loads to pack and remember and do. So we get up there and I say, Mum, I'm going to run in. I'm going to open the door. You can take all the stuff in and I'll come back. So I ran in, opened the door. She got all the stuff in. I came back and I got everything out of the car, shut the car door, was feeling very pleased with myself, except I shut the car door, locked it all with the keys and the engine running in the car. So the car is running, the keys are inside, it's locked tight, and we can't get in.
So I rang up the police station.
My mum's in a panic because she's like, oh my God,
It's
the
gonna
car's going to blow up.
And I said to him, excuse me, my car's ready to blow up. So he said, why, what's happened? So I said, my daughter's locked the car and the engine's running and it hasn't got a lot of petrol in, but it's getting hotter and hotter.
And the keys are in the ignition.
And the keys are in the ignition. So she said, blow up. So I said, I'm not sure, but please come. And he used to panic in my
Well, we're on a wireless. We're on a laptop. Okay. Yeah. So there we are. Mum's called the police in a panic, and I'm in the salon, and I've got clients coming any minute, but we can't deal with the clients. We tell them, hold on, we're going to be running a bit late today, all day, because we've locked the keys in the car. So we have a couple of cops. And three police cars came, and they got all kinds of wires, and basically we had policemen that broke into the car.
They used a coat hanger.
They used a coat hanger, like criminals. They got into the car, through the window, opened up the door, turned off the engine, gave us our keys, locked the door, had some kind of group photo because they thought it was really, really funny, and off they went, and we went to work. That was one of our cute adventures. Panic to ridiculous joy. So anyway, I know our time is up. I just want to thank Rhoda for being here today, and for being on the Off the Cuff Truth with Ruth Thursdays. Look out for next Thursday. I'm going to come back to you with healing stories. Stories from when I had healing centres, and all the joys and laughter and tears and everything in between from that time. So look out for me for next week with that. And let's let Rhoda say goodbye to all our listeners.
Goodbye, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it, and bless you all.
And take her advice and sit around the table at least once a week.
The radio station that shines and shares its light with